Hi, this is Cassie with MyCounselor.Online, and today I have Melissa Abellio, one of our fantastic therapists on the MyCounselor team. Thanks for meeting with me today, Melissa.
Thanks for meeting with me, Cassie.
I am so excited to dig into this article that you wrote about when men don't want sex.
Mm-hmm.
So that is such a countercultural idea that there could be any reason in this world ever that a man would not want to have sex. And so as I started to dig it, I was like, curiosity piqued. What is this about? So I jumped in and I started reading, and it's about erectile dysfunction. So I was hoping you could start by defining for our audience what is erectile dysfunction.
Absolutely. So erectile dysfunction is really the ultimate fear of not being able to achieve an erection. And so men tend to avoid trying to have sex because of that fear. And it's usually correlated to the lack of comfort and confidence with either getting or keeping an erection.
Gotcha. So it's a much deeper thing than the actual physiological I either can or cannot maintain or for whatever. It's
yes, exactly.
Physiological, but also there's a huge emotional component of it.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
That's kind of amazing. Okay, so you talk about how it's actually a super normal thing that men deal with, but we just don't hear about it because there's shaming around it. There's very much we hear like all these ads for different medications that can make it better, like it's something that's terrible to deal with and hopeless except if you have medication. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited to hear, especially from a Christian perspective, what just the pieces about erectile dysfunction. So first of all, what would you say is one of the biggest contributing factors to erectile dysfunction?
Well, I think one of the biggest, it could be physically related. I mean, sometimes eating and exercise and sleep patterns can contribute. There can also be like vascular and neurological or hormonal aspects of the body that make it difficult to achieve erection. And so those are the more physical pieces. And I always encourage my clients who share that they're struggling with erectile dysfunction to go and get like a physical just to make sure that it's not vascular, if there's any heart issues or anything like that. So that's, I would say that you asked kind of what the bigger thing is, but I would honestly say one of the larger contributors to it is really the emotional piece.
Okay.
Feelings can definitely affect the desire to have sex and the ability to gain and maintain an erection. It's common that when a guy is focused on whether or not he's able to obtain an erection, their mind totally becomes consumed with the potential of it not occurring, which then makes it even more difficult for them to achieve an erection because the very automatic nature of an erection, their automatic nervous system shuts down.
Yeah.
It makes it very difficult when their mind is totally caught up and they're kind of on the bedpost watching themselves try to achieve.
Wishing, being stressed, performance anxiety.
Yes.
Whether it's about that or anything else, that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of men, even, during sex, if they lose an erection, think that there's something wrong with that, like what's going on.
Yeah.
If it's in between things that they're moving in between things that they're doing during sex, they're like, what's wrong with me? Why wouldn't I keep like a rock hard erection?
Yes.
That's like the standard, I'm not 50 years old or 60 years old yet. What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
I think that starts causing anxiety, which then obviously makes it even more difficult for them.
So would you say that if you are moving between actions within the sexual relationship with your wife during your intimate time, that not maintaining a rock hard erection during those times is actually normal?
Very normal.
Very normal.
Very normal. Very normal. And I think that's
encouragement.
Yes, very normal. Very normal. I think when there's not any kind of active stimulation going on to the penis, very normal for.
And for the women that are watching, that doesn't mean you're not sexy or you're not arousing enough, or it's just the nature of the physiological body around that. Yes?
Exactly. And that's a good point, Cassie, that a lot of women are like, oh, I've lost his interest. I'm not sexy. I'm not attractive enough for him to stay aroused. And that's just not the case at all. They just need to continue to have that stimulation for the erection to stay. It has nothing to do with their attractiveness.
And I can't help but think, like, the difference between an 18-year-old male and a 40-year-old male. Like, there's going to be difference, yes?
Yes. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, they're as you get older and as you age, your ability to maintain an erection longer.
Yes.
And, without stimulation is a lot less.
Yeah. So there's obviously going to come a point where a man's body doesn't perform the same as it did when he was 18 years old in that, height of testosterone craziness. And there's, we hear all the time about drugs on the market that can be used for that. Are you more of a proponent of going to get drugs first, or more of a proponent of engaging the emotional side and talking through that first?
That's a great question. Well, I definitely think assessing all of that is important before making any kind of decision. And so understanding if there is a physiological component there, I think is useful. If we just throw medication at it, we don't know, there may be other reasons why the person's struggling with that. And it would probably be useful for those to be explored and assessed before just chucking medication at it. Now, like I said, I think there should be a thorough assessment of the emotional, relational, and the physiological components so that those decisions can be made. Maybe it's a coupling of the physiological and emotional. And so I think doing an accurate assessment first is really necessary and important. I do think too, like the physiological piece, that medication can be helpful, but as men get older, their pelvic floor muscles weaken. Yeah. And so, even then going to a physical therapist who knows what they're doing and helping them strengthen the pelvic floor can be huge as well. And so I'm definitely not a proponent of just like, okay, you're struggling with erectile dysfunction, let's put you on some medication. I definitely want to do a thorough assessment on each facet before we make any decisions about it.
Yeah, and I want to circle around to the Christian perspective, because I think a biblical Christian perspective of the purpose of sex really informs how you go about treating or talking through erectile dysfunction, for marriage being for the purpose of connection and relationship. Could you talk about how you feel like a Christian perspective matters in this situation?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, the Bible, the word to know, when you break that down in the Greek and Hebrew, it means to experience. Yeah. It's interesting, it says that a lot in the scriptures. When a man lays with his wife, he knew her. Yeah. And I think there's this whole concept of being known in sex that's much deeper than the physical act of sex. That being known is very three-dimensional. It's like knowing your heart,
yes,
and mind and body, not just that. And so I think in the context of struggling with erectile dysfunction, I think, a couple being able to navigate that within the safety and confines of their emotional connection and spiritual connection. Yes. That being able to navigate that challenge among that relational dynamic is so secure and so safe. Yes. And I think the way God designed us for us to be able to navigate these types of things, especially as we age. Yeah, things are going to come up as men get older and women get older. There's going to be that navigation of having to change those things. And if there's not that three-dimensional aspect of our sexuality, which is so much more than just sex, then the way God designed it, then we can navigate those things more safely and securely.
It's beautiful. It's a relationship, not having to walk through challenging things alone. So that's so fun. Well, thank you so much for being willing to write a topic that's not mainstream, but that is so valuable and so important for our marriages and for the hearts of men. I think especially to encourage them because, they just always want to be so strong and have everything and all the right answers. And it's okay. There's just a lack of education on this topic. And so thank you for bringing education on this topic. I appreciate it. And if you want to see more from Melissa, you can check out her other videos. You can check out her other articles at MyCounselor.Online.